Hello, and hopefully, if my camera will work, welcome. This is the demo day with presentations from the April 21 cohort. So hello and welcome everybody. April, I remember your first week full-time, 12 weeks ago, and all of that excitement and energy as you met all of us for the first time. I remember some things from that week. In particular, there were some things that you asked of each other. You asked each other to create an inclusive environment, to help and support each other, to advocate for each other's progress, and at the beginning of the day, to give everyone a boost. There were some things you hoped to achieve over the course as well. Learning to learn, having confidence in yourselves as developers, and communicating better to get the most out of each other and yourselves. You've all come a really, really long way in the last 16 weeks. And I'm really proud of what you've all accomplished and how you've all grown. I really think you've achieved all of those things, and I hope you agree. With that, let's move on to what's going to happen this evening. So we've got a short intro. That bit's nearly over. After this, there will be some presentations from the teams and a short Q&A at the end for any questions you in the audience have about makers and the course. So with that, let the presentations roll. Over to you, Team Hang Git.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. Just share my screen. Okay, so we're Team Hang Git, and shortly some of my colleagues will tell you a bit about what that means and what our build does. But who are we? So we are Charlie Slater, give us a wave. Becca Parker, that's me. Johnny, Russell, Maria, and Elliot. Okay, over to Johnny.
Cool. So a challenging aspect of learning to code is getting familiar with Git. So Git is a version control system. It allows you to track changes in your code, and it usually is used for coordinating work among programmers when developing. It can be a tricky thing to get started with, and so we wanted to support junior developers like ourselves in getting to grips with it. So from this idea, our game Hang Git was born. It's based around the game Hangman, but focuses on Git commands so you can learn in an interactive and fun way. Along with the goal of building a game to support learning, for us as a team, we agreed early on that we wanted to learn something new and to keep improving our skill set. Because of this, we decided to build a project using React on the front end and Node on the back end with an Express framework, which is a stack we'd never used before. It was definitely challenging, but we wanted to continue learning during this 2-week process. I'll now pass you over to Elliot, who's going to demo our project.
Thanks, Johnny. Right, so yeah, this is our site, and the first thing we try to do is really emulate the look and feel of the site GitHub itself, just so there's some cohesion between both our sites. And you can see on the front page that there are 2 features that help to gamify the learning process. You can save a score with a username, which is then uploaded to leaderboards. And then we also have various difficulty levels, which help aid replayability. And they let different skill levels learn at their own pace, which is exactly why we kind of made this. So let's play. So here's our hangman, and there's a hint for our hidden words. So we're just going to enter this one correctly. And yep, we got a huge burst of confetti, which is very well deserved. And I think now if we put in a wrong letter, there you go, we'll tell you in red if it's a wrong letter, and we'll tell you if you've repeated a letter as well. So as I go through, you can see that sometimes when I make an error, our hangman's being updated. And here we are having our hangman hung. You lose a bit of score, but it's all good. You can retry to keep learning, but you won't get a perfect score. So then when you submit your score, you should go to the leaderboards. And here we can see everyone else's score, which is a great place to compare or like track your progress with your mates or boast. And you can even go for a perfect score on the hardest difficulty, which is also quite fun. So now over to Maria for what we learned.
Thank you, Elliot. So in this time, we were trying to use a new technology, and which is the stack, which is React, which we have not worked with before. We use an agile collaboration processes, so we kept track what we have to do with Trello board, and we use Circle CI, which is a way of testing the code to see that nothing got wrong when we were adding any improvements to keep our code clean and consistent. We also use Heroku as a way of hosting the website to have a really good feel of how it was going to look for anybody who was going to be using it. We also had to learn how to use new libraries in React and a different way of working instead of building everything from the ground up, to make use of other tools and workarounds. And of course, because the main objective for us was to share the knowledge, we did have some sessions sharing all the knowledge with the rest of the team so we could expand our skill set. Up to you now, Charlie.
Thanks, Maria. So one of the immediate challenges we faced was working in a new team with new people on a project that had not yet been decided for us. So this meant we had to quickly decide between us what game we wanted to build and what everyone's goal for the project was. This was made easier as everyone on our team was respectful and open to new ideas that were shared in our stand-ups and retros. And we all decided our main goal was to learn something new, hence the new stack. So this made it easy to bounce ideas around and arrive at the final product you just saw. We also only had 2 weeks to become familiar with a new framework language and library, as Johnny and Maria have just pointed out. We had a couple of weeks of JavaScript before, but everything else is brand new to us. So this meant that fixing smaller bugs often took a lot longer than expected, and it took us a while to get going. So this was made easier by deciding as a group to mix up our project work with occasional sessions of self-led learning, particularly for React at the beginning, which helped everyone get comfortable with it. Also, working on a larger project also meant that there were lots of things going on simultaneously, and new things were being built all the time. And this made it really hard to stay on top of every new feature being added and sticking to our team's goal of learning. So to combat this, we made it so 2 people had to review any work done and would have everyone share what they were working on at stand-ups every morning in case people had any questions. We would also use this time to think about what could realistically be achieved and prioritize working on certain features over others. I will now hand it over to Russell.
Thanks, Charlie. So that's the end of our presentation. Here's a quick summary. We managed to stick to our main objectives, which were every day we'd ask ourselves, are we having fun? Are we better developers than we were yesterday? And are we continuing to learn? We stuck to the developer process that we've learned during our time at Makers. We were really proud of our test coverage because development with React doesn't necessarily lend itself to a fully test-driven development process. We pulled together as a team. We supported each other through the ups and the downs of the project. And we have a web app that's fun and it helps learners like ourselves learn. And we're all really proud of it. Thank you very much.
Great. And on the screen there is a link. It's up live. So if you fancy having a go, head on over there. It works best on a computer. So yeah, you'll need to type that into your browser.
Right. Thank you, Team Hangit. And I have a question for you, if you don't mind. I would love to know what your highlight from the last 2 weeks was.
Yeah, sure. I think our highlight was kind of getting used to a brand new framework, a new stack, React. It was quite a challenge, but I think we all see the benefits of using it now. And it's just quite cool to, I guess, have another one under the belt, sort of. But yeah, I think we're kind of most proud of that.
All right, fantastic. Thank you ever so much, Team Hang Git. And now we're going to move on to our next team of the night, which is Team Tequila Driven Development. Take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. We are Team Tequila Driven Development. We're a 4-person team from the April 2021 Makers cohort. And the project we are presenting is called Tavern Keepers. Don't be fooled by the taverns and the tequilas. We are not an application designed to help you get drunk, as misleading as that may be. Jenny will give you a rundown in a moment of what the app actually is about. Thank you for all coming, and I hope you enjoy the presentation.
Yeah, hi guys. So the idea for this app came from me as a massive Dungeons and Dragons nerd, always wanting everybody else to be, and honestly finding it hard to find people locally who would want to play and to organize and schedule those games with. So we decided to create an app where you can find people in your local area who are players of D&D or potential players of D&D, and you can start campaigns or taverns, as we called them, and organize from there. So in terms of our aims, we set out wanting to foster a creative environment with a professional practices where you could deepen our learning and we could make a production quality code base that we were really proud of. To achieve this, we agreed early on using Ruby on Rails, and this provided a really solid foundation to build on and allowed us to learn and develop and use lots of extra technologies as we added features. And JP is going to talk you through some of those features now.
Hi, everyone. Just waiting for that to start. So this is the registration page where the user can input all their details, and the most important being their address to help them find other users that are within a certain distance from them, which I will display shortly. So I'll just log in here with a very fake email. And once you log in, your home page is your own profile page where you've got access to different things. So on the top left, you've got your own information that you've punched in. You've got all the taverns available that have been registered, a list of all the users. And then on the bottom left is actually the focus area where you've got players within 10 miles of you to help you find players close enough that can join your games. Then on the bottom right, you've got your taverns that you've created. And in the German jellyfish, there's a little green dot, which indicates that there's a notification. So if we head over to the taverns page, this is a list of all the taverns with more detailed information, how many people are in it, what's the purpose of the tavern, if there's anyone in it. And you can also then create your own by inputting the information in there and adding your own character. But if we head back to the profile page, we can go into the German jellyfish and see what that notification is all about. So at the top, you've got your details. Only the admin can delete the group. On the left, you've got all the players within the group and their titles. And there's the notification there that someone has requested to join the group. So in this case, we'll accept, and the name will pop up then on the left, and they're part of your group. You can schedule a battle or a game by inserting the necessary information into the input fields. And just mind the spelling, please. Once you schedule a game, it pops up on the top or on the right-hand side with all the game details. And it also shows in the message board where all the players have access to comment and post and things. Players can indicate whether they are attending or not. And all the players that are attending, once you click the end session button, all those players will have an increased score, which then you can determine, that'll determine how much they've played, their experience. I'll now hand over to Willoughby.
Thanks, JP. So the successes and what we learned. I think our first success was how we got much better at following an agile workflow with daily stand-ups and retros. And we followed sprints of 3 days with planning sessions at the end of each sprint, so we could could get together and decide as a group what we wanted to work on next and how we could make it better. This was made a lot easier by using GitHub project board, which allowed us to keep track of all the tickets and see what needed to be done next in the sprint. We used a mixture of solo and pair programming with also multiple programming as well, which meant we could work independently, but also get support from other people in the team if we needed it. So if we're less experienced in a particular area or less knowledgeable, then that support was at hand. I think we're very happy that we were able to get the site hosted on Heroku from day one and using continuous integration from day one, because that saved us a whole load of problems which we would have found later down the line, which allowed us to focus on creating high quality code with high test coverage. And back to you, Charlie.
So yeah, that is our application, Tavern Keepers, built by Team Tequila driven development, and that's me, JP, Jenny, and Willoughby. The project wasn't without its difficulties, but we opted into using Rails as a framework to minimize any unexpected challenges that might occur, solely because we'd used Rails before to build a social platform. So we knew that Rails could offer us everything that we needed to get this done. Using a familiar framework was also ideal for us because we were the smallest group of all the project teams for the final project. So it helped us keep on top of the amount of work that we expected to do. Coming out the back of it, we think that was a good choice. And it's been a great 2 weeks. We've learned a lot. And that's it. Thank you for being here for the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Team Tequila Driven Development. I have a question for you, if you're willing to take it. Out of all of your goals, what goal do you think you managed the best?
We set ourselves high targets every 3 days, as Willoughby mentioned. So for example, by Wednesday, we had to have an MVP. By Friday, we needed a certain amount of features. And then we went planning again Monday. And honestly, we had so many features. And the fact that we met those goals every week, obviously there were difficulties, but I think that and the fact that we worked so well together, the teamwork, the communication, the help we offered one another really helped us to develop, which we think is quite a good product.
All right. Thank you once again, Team Tequila Driven Development. Just as a very quick reminder for those of you in the audience, there will be a short Q&A at the end where we'll be around to answer any questions you have about makers and about the course. Now, on to our final group for today, Team ThankYouNext.js.
Thanks, Alex. We are ThankYouNext.js, and here is our little brainchild that we have spent the last 2 weeks of our life building. It's called TWixt. So it was designed and developed by Gunnell, Robert, Stuart, myself, Felix, and James. And we wanted to build this because we found that it's a problem, especially in big cities. If you want to meet up with someone, especially if you're in different areas, someone always has to travel more to meet up somewhere, and you might not know the area. And you always tend to go to the same place because we are creatures of habit. It's just how we are. And then no one can decide on where to go and what they want to eat. So we want to design and build a web app that helped take the hassle out of choosing a bar or restaurant to meet your mate. Over to you, Gunnell.
So what if you had an app which finds a midpoint between you and your friend and shows you a list of locations within a certain range of that midpoint? Our app does exactly this. It allows you to see information about these midpoint venues at a glance, such as hours, contact details, and rating. And all you need to do is basically input your friends and your location details with the help of our cool autocomplete feature. And then you can also adjust the radius if you want with just a slider. And our fluid map user interface will automatically zoom in and out. And you can also, if you say, for example, if you feel like a casual coffee or with a friend or a catch up over a drink, you can also filter by the type of venue and sort by distance and rating. And once you're ready, you can just book the place and get ready for a great Friday night out. I'll pass it over to Rob to show you our features in action.
So this is a quick pre-recorded demo showing how our app works. So you start by typing in your location and your friend's location. This has an autocomplete, so you can easily choose your places. You also choose the travel mode you're using and the type of place you want to find. You can set the radius around which to search. When you search, it comes up with markers on the map to show where they are. And if you hover over the places, it will show you on the map which one you're selecting. If you click on them, it will show you a bit more information, like their phone number, website, and opening hours. And you can sort these places by rating or by distance from the midpoint. If you change the radius, the map will automatically update to show you your new search radius, as well as the new places. And lastly, this is showing you what happens if you put in an invalid search, like New York to Helsinki. It comes up with a helpful error message. And I'll pass on to Stu now.
What went well? From the outset, our team had clear mutual goals about how we wanted our app to do and how we wanted it to feel, which I think was one of the biggest driving forces for our project. We all knew exactly what we were working towards and pretty much how we wanted to achieve it. We worked very well as a team throughout, helping each other through blockers and supporting each other's learning. Working methodically and in a structured way allowed each of us to pick up the tickets we felt we wanted to take on each day. And we adapted through every twist and turn of this project, and our willingness to work with a completely new stack and the drive to challenge ourselves really speaks volumes about how far each of us have come since we started here at Makers. Now on to Felix.
So we did face some challenges during the 2 weeks, and our primary challenge was getting our website to display the midpoint based on travel time rather than geographical distance, which is what our APIs returned. This was really important so that the midpoint was optimized for your chosen mode of transport, and we did achieve this, but it's definitely a challenge. Also, our minimum viable product was actually quite large. Although we actually saw it as quite simple, as it was just going to be a map with a single point, this actually took a lot of research, planning, and learning before we could even get to that stage. We also choose to use Next, which is a framework of React, which is based on the JavaScript language. And we'd only done a few weeks of JavaScript during the course. And so there's a lot to learn in the short space of time. And this had a knock-on effect onto our test-driven development, because that had to take a back seat while we caught up and did lots of learning. On to James.
Our project was an ambitious step, which saw us take on a new library, framework, and language. As such, we had to manage our time and allocate it to learning as well as building. Our project also heavily relied on a foundation of API usage. And as such, we also had to familiarize ourselves with interacting and using these APIs. This also required us to understand and use JavaScript asynchronously in order to have our project run. Finally, we had to take all these elements and combine them into one React project that we used. That is all for our presentation. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you, team. Thank you, Next.js. So I have a quick question for you, if you're willing to take it. As a team, what are you most proud of that you accomplished in the last 2 weeks?
I think Gunnell should answer this one.
So I think our willingness to take on the new challenge and not to, despite the odds, we basically come Friday, 1 week into it, we were not halfway even through our MVP, and we weren't sure what we're doing, and we were very close to giving up, and we didn't give up, and I'm very glad we didn't give up. And I think it was thanks to the team and our willingness to help each other and to give our 100%, despite what we learned. It was very new for all of us, but we didn't give up, and I'm very proud and grateful to be part of the team and of our product as well.
All right. Thank you once again, team. Thank you, Next.js. Groups, thank you all for your presentations. They've been fantastic. You may feel absolutely free to drop from this call whenever you're ready. For now, let's move on to the Q&A part of this evening. Haley, would you like to do any more introduction to that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. I guess just first of all, well done to the cohort. Always lovely to see the projects that come out at the end of the course. But yeah, feel free to log off now, you guys. Please go and have some virtual or real life drinks and celebrate what you've done. Really, really great work. For those of you who are still online, this next section is just going to be a quick Q&A about the course if you're looking to join makers. So it's going to be myself and Alex who can answer a couple of questions. So this is anything from what we recommend if, you know, to prepare if you've got an interview coming up, or the course content, or anything about our new hybrid option as well. So if you have a question for us at all, we've got a little Q&A feature down at the bottom there. It would be really great if you could submit any questions in that section. But to get things going, I can see there's one that's just coming in. I'm just going to share a little bit of information about our next course dates and which ones are open to apply for. So the next available pre-course date is the pre-course starting the 26th of July. You've just about got enough time to still apply to that. It's starting on Monday, but if you've completed the preparation work, you may be able to still pair on Monday to join the pre-course. Otherwise, no worries at all. The next cohort starting after that is the August 23rd pre-course. With that one, it's slightly different because that's our first hybrid delivery. So that's where half of it will be delivered remotely as the students today have done their course, and half of it will be delivered on site in our campus in Shoreditch. So if you're looking to have a little bit of in-person interaction, maybe that one's the right one for you. Cool. So if you've got any questions about those things as well, please feel free to ask for more information. Great. So I can see a couple of questions have come in, so we'll just work our way through them. Cool. So the first question is asking, it's mentioned that a cohort is 28 students. Did everyone end up doing a project, or did someone drop out? Yeah, great question. So 28 students is the maximum capacity. So sometimes cohorts can be smaller than that, but they'll never go over that number. Just, so we can make sure we've got enough resource and people have enough kind of contact time. I don't work directly with the cohort, so I don't know if anyone dropped out at all, Alex.
There was one person who dropped out due to well, dropped back a cohort, in fact, due to personal circumstances. Happy personal circumstances, I'm glad to add, but personal circumstances nonetheless. But apart from that, this is the cohort that started the course.
Lovely. All right, thank you. Cool. So James is asking, I wondered if there's anything specific. A lot of students said they wished they may have learned or researched a bit before joining Makers. Generally, I think the students have left. I know there's 2 of you online if you did want to join in and contribute anything. But aside from that, what I can do is we've got some videos of previous Q&As that are with former Maker students. So I'll try to find one of those while we're online and post it in the chat for you. So you can see like a couple of different people's opinions on what previous cohorts have said. I'll try to speedily search for that as we're going along. Okay, so next question is asking, why would we recommend joining Makers? Alex, I'll go to you first, and then I think Grant from the partnerships team has joined as well, so he might be able to share a little bit about our kind of industry connections afterwards.
Okay. From my perspective, and this is quite a personal perspective, I came to Makers as a coach because I'd worked with a lot of makers in my previous job, and I loved the people who'd come through Makers, but I was incredibly impressed with what Makers graduates could do. And that's really why I came to work here, in fact. Aside from that, really, it's not just about development of technical skills. It's not just about getting that first job. Makers is really about setting your career up for life. So why should you come to Makers? You should come to Makers because you want a new career in technology, or even you just want to know a lot more about technology and be capable in that way. And that's absolutely fine. But if a career is what you want, that really is our aim.
Cool, yeah, Grant, do you have anything on that side at all?
Yeah, and sorry about my internet connection, not my face not being on, but yeah, I would add a couple of things actually. If you would say why recommend join, I would say if you were looking at other options and other boot camps, I would recommend that you join us because it's what we specialize in. You know, we are one of the largest and still one of the only that really just focuses on core software development coding boot camps, whereas a lot of the other boot camps sort of generalize. They look at other programs, they have lots of different programs, and we've really stayed focused on coding. And secondly, because of our partnerships. I mean, I would say that I'm in partnerships, so but you know, we've built up really good relationships with some really impressive employer partners, Deloitte, the government, Ford, and some really exciting startups and scale-ups that hire our makers. So you know, we work in partnership with you to help you to secure your first role with some amazing companies that have been hiring makers for years.
No, thanks so much, Grant. And sorry, I probably should have introduced you a bit better. Grant is the head of partnerships, so his role is essentially working with companies to tell them all about makers and what our students learn, and making sure we've got like a really great selection of hiring partners and job opportunities when students leave the course. I guess from my perspective of why I think you should join Makers, I think there's a lot of care from all of the staff about how well our students do. I mean, I've worked here for 3 years now, and I think all of the members of the team really invest, like, you know, a lot of personal effort in students doing well, like whether it's the team who kind of help you join the course in the beginning, like they're not gonna say that you're ready if you're not ready. They're very genuine with helping you if it's the right time for you, or if it's not, giving you advice. And same with the partnerships team, like helping you get the right job. It's not just we're going to shove you into any job at all. I think, yeah, everyone is like really personally cares about the students' development, That's why I like working here. So yeah, I think it's a very authentic kind of place. So hopefully it's right for you. Lovely. I'm going to move on to the next one. So do you have any advice for potential apprentices starting makers? Alex, is there anything different at all about the prep for apprentices at all, or is it kind of more general for anyone joining?
So I think this is a little bit tricky for me to answer because I work primarily on the academy side of makers. There is, of course, the apprentices side of makers as well. If you've secured your place and you're wondering how you can best prepare for makers, I would totally suggest that you do some coding exercises, maybe go and investigate code wars and things like that. But honestly, get in touch with a member of the admissions team and ask them, because this is a question they handle a lot and I'm not really on that side of things.
Yeah, and I mean, there's general things that definitely go across the board. I mean, if you're kind of wondering what your kind of boot camp experience is like, all of our alumni are obviously like, well, in general on LinkedIn as well. So if you want to get the kind of perspective of someone who's done the apprenticeship before, just search makers on LinkedIn. The alumni are really, really willing to speak to people who are going through the same process. So they'll have really, really great tips about, you know, it kind of answers the previous question as well, like, you know, what they wish they knew or anything that helped them get along. So yeah, they're kind of like a little secret resource of knowledge. So I'm sure they'll be able to help you as well.
And I'd just add there, Hayley, if I could, that you know, what I would do to prepare is get excited, because what we try and do is make sure that experience across the boot camp is really about your coding journey, your experience, and you homing your skills. So it's great that you're going through the apprenticeship program and great that you're supported by an employer. That's fantastic. But preparation should be no different to any of the programs that you come through with makers, whether it's academy or apprenticeships, because we're going to focus on you as an individual and you and your skills. So you know, you shouldn't need too much preparation, because that's what we're here for. But as Alex says, you know, getting under the coding resources, practicing the code, getting under the skin of Ruby, and as Hayley says, kind of, you know, networking with alumni, people who have been trained by, you know, maybe there are already some that have gone for apprenticeships in your company, and maybe networking with them and understanding what's to come. But yeah, I wouldn't over prep. You're going to have a really intensive 12 weeks, just like everyone who comes on. And so, you know, get ready for that and get in the mindset and enjoy it.
Cool, thanks so much, guys. I'm gonna just skip to some of the other questions that are more specifically about partnerships. We will answer all of them, but it's just in case Grant has to jump off. So I think he'd be able to answer a few of the ones that are a bit lower down. There's one asking, there are some other courses that are a similar kind of thing to makers, but for example, are around £1,500 cheaper, or there's a little bit of fluctuation, I guess. What kind of differences do we have that justifies the higher price?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and you know, I think one of the things that we try and focus on is that we're not just about the sort of 16 weeks or 12 weeks full-time immersive boot camp. We are about the community, the job offers that we support you with, and the job practice and preparation and the partnerships that we build. So it's not just about learning and finishing the sort of course and then you're on your own. As soon as you've finished the course and you know you've spent time with the technical coaches, they're still available after you've completed that course. They're not just saying you've completed your course, now off you go, you're on your own. You become a part of the community, and then you're able to access everyone through makers, staff, technical coaches, all staff across the business and previous alumni, which is a great resource to have access to. Because if you think we've trained over 2,000 200, I think now. That is a good network to be part of, and worth every penny. And then the support from the developer success team. We have our job hunting support, where when you're in the job hunting phase, they're able to support you with getting your CV, GitHub, getting ready for interviews, and also recommend companies that they know that will probably be good for you. Also, the technical coaches will support you with any tech tests as well. So when you get interview requests, you're able to request the support of a technical coach to prep for that interview. And then, as I mentioned earlier, they've then got the wider support of the partnerships team, who are constantly building relationships with really impressive employer partners to bring the vacancies only to makers. So, you should hopefully, when you're interviewing through the partnerships team, you should only be interviewing as a maker. They shouldn't be considering other people, which really helps you secure those roles at the junior phase that's quite competitive. So yeah, there's a whole range of support, and we don't stop supporting you. So, there's not like a 3 month after the boot camp and you get no support. We're here until you get a job.
Thanks so much, Grant. That's really helpful context. I think the only other thing I'd add as well is like we were the first bootcamp to be doing this I know the UK, I think maybe in Europe. So we're really, really well established in terms of industry connections, and also people who trained with us 8 years ago when we kind of started. They're now in senior positions, and they know the reputation because they've done it. So they'll come back and either hire from us or advocate for people who are going through makers now. And yeah, I just really wanted to kind of reiterate as well, like the ongoing support, like, all boot camps advertise themselves as either 12 weeks or 16 weeks. It really is, until you get a job, if that's what your goal is. Obviously, it's like some people had like a little bit of trouble when it was around the pandemic, but now those people are getting into roles because we've constantly been coaching them. So yeah, and I think to say that other boot camps don't do that, but I know that, obviously I'm biased, but
how rude of me, Alex, not to mention you and the coaching team, because actually one of the things that we invest in as a company is skilled technical coaches who have done the job, who know what they're doing and can support people. And we know of some courses that are cheaper, that do have some people who aren't technically trained, that do tutor the programs. And we also know of some courses that are cheaper, that are pre-recorded online lessons that aren't delivered by the live by technical experts. So I should have added that in there. That is a crucial part of what you're getting for that cost is some really super experienced technical people who can walk the talk and can support you through the journey.
Cool, thanks, Grant. There was another kind of second question that was part of one of those, if you have time. It was asking, do some people sorry, I've lost the question. Do some people not end up getting a job right after the course?
Yeah, great question, and apologies, it will be my last question to answer, because as Hayley said, we've got lots of people booked calls this evening to get their applications in for the course, so I need to jump off and speak to those. But I'll just answer this one. Everyone's journey is different. There are some people that take 6 months to secure work. There are some people that secure work almost immediately, like a few days after the course, and everyone's journey is different. So if you're particularly looking for a particular industry or particular company type, that will somewhat restrict extend the time it takes to get a job. So I'm not going to lie and say that everyone gets a job within 3 months. That doesn't happen. Everyone's journey is different. But what we will do is we will try and do everything in our power to make that journey as short as possible, based on what you're trying to secure or what you're looking for or where you're at in terms of your skill set. Some people do go on to do top-up courses with our, sometimes we do 2 weeks additional skills with our technical coaches, and some people take a little bit longer to just home in on a particular language that they may have done during demo day, and then don't start their search for 4 weeks. So it's very, very different for everyone. And yes, there are people that can take up to 6 months to get jobs, but our goal is really that 3 to 6 month window. Hopefully that everyone that we're supporting shouldn't be waiting any longer than that if there's no blockers, and if you start job hunting from as soon as you finish the course.
Cool, thank you so much, Grant. And yeah, feel free to jump off now. I know you've got.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Grant.
Cool. So I'm going to jump back up to the top. Oh, sorry, Alex.
I just wanted to acknowledge that there was a second part of that question, asking, is the partnership aspect what justifies the higher price relative to other courses? I'm hoping that's been answered at this point. But if not, obviously, if you've got further questions, just pop them in.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Sorry if I kind of skipped over some of it. Cool. So yeah, I'm just going to make my way back to the top. So James is asking, there are 3 types of course. Sorry, are there 3 types of course? Full-time, hybrid, and remote. So thank you for asking this, because it has changed, and it's not that there's 3 types. There's 2 types of course for the bootcamp. So it'll either be fully remote or the hybrid course. Fully remote is kind of as it says on the tin. No one is expected to come in at any point of the cohort of the course. So if you're living outside of London or have family commitments or just personally feel kind of safer learning from home, that's, you know, entirely your choice, and we'd love to have you on the remote course. Hybrid works slightly differently, and we do have a full breakdown, which is in our FAQs, I believe. But as a quick overview, so the first 4 weeks, which is the pre-course, that's all done remotely. That's the same as it's always been. The first 2 weeks of the main course, which comes directly after the pre-course, those are on site. And then as far as I can remember, it's 2 weeks off-site, 2 weeks on-site. So it's split half and half into learning remotely or learning in the office. Obviously, you know, with returning back to a physical environment, one thing that we're being super careful with is COVID. The whole office has kind of been completely sort of redesigned by our lovely ops team to keep, you know, social distancing and that kind of thing. We're still sticking to those measures despite the government guidelines, you know, being removed. So if you had any further questions about like COVID safety, I'll send a follow-up email afterwards, and feel free to just drop me a message back, and I can share some more details of like what that looks like at Makers. So hopefully everyone feels nice and safe. Cool.
Okay, I think this next one might be for me.
I think so, yeah.
So, hi, was just wondering if there is a most valuable coding language. I started with Python, but noticed that Makers seems to be a little weighted towards Ruby. Is it worth learning something else? So, there are some programming languages which are more commonly used, but generally speaking, we spend a couple of weeks on learning a new language in the middle of the course, and people find that with the experience they have from starting in Ruby, that really enables them to transfer that learning into another language. That language for Academy is JavaScript, but it's sometimes a little different for apprenticeships. So while some languages might be more valuable, the ability to learn a language is more valuable still. And that's really what we're focused on. And there are a number of reasons why we use Ruby, mostly that it's a little bit friendlier for beginner developers. And that way it doesn't get in the way of you learning the fundamentals that you really need to know.
Awesome, thank you, Alex. Lovely stuff. So, really impressed with the projects, thank you. Not that I did them. I was wondering, how are the cohorts sorted into groups for the projects? Yeah, Alex, I think this is another one for you.
Yep, absolutely. So in this case, we have, for final projects, we have an ideation session where people bring their ideas from the cohorts, And we tried to sort of sort through and group those ideas, and then the more generalized ideas are things that they elect to work on. So for instance, the TWixt was really around tools for friendship, and there were a number of tools for friendship that were suggested. The games group was focused around games, but given those base themes, the groups were formed, but obviously they then had actually completely free choice after that to elect to do something different or to take whatever spin on it they wanted to.
Awesome, thank you. So the next question is asking, how experienced do we want potential students to be before we start the course? Do you need to be fairly familiar with Ruby and JavaScript already? Yeah, that's a really good question. So in terms of the preparation work that we ask you to do, there's two main resources, which are Codecademy, which is a free resource. Well, the first course on there is free, and they have a course that's literally just called Learn Ruby. So we expect you to complete that. The other resource is Code Wars. It's a bit of a jump between Codecademy and Code Wars. So if you suddenly get on there and they're a bit like, this looks insane, don't worry. A lot of people feel the same way. The challenges on there are split into different levels. We only expect you to kind of tackle the 8th level, which is the easiest. Don't worry about going any higher than that, because they are challenging. And on that platform, you gather points as you solve challenges, which are called Caillou points, I believe. And we want you to get around 100 points. And when you've done those two things, that's the kind of level that we expect you to be to apply for the course. And both of those things are done in Ruby. We don't expect you to have done any work on JavaScript. Obviously, I mean, on Java, sorry, like obviously any other preparation you do is obviously going to be beneficial for you. So if you're interested in it, then please feel free to explore it, but it's not something that we would expect at all. Anything else to add at all, Alex?
So on the topic of that little jump between Codecademy and Code Wars, we do have events which run regularly called Code Accelerator workshops. And if maybe you've hit that jump and you're struggling a bit with it, or you want to come along and have a little bit of coaching from one of us coaches, I definitely recommend you sign up for those. And there you'll be paired up, you'll have a bit of support, and you'll work through a problem on Code Wars with someone else.
Really glad you mentioned Code Accelerator. I'm just posting the link to that in the chat as well. There's also a link to the Q&A video I mentioned. But yeah, definitely come along to Code Accelerator if you're at that point. It's basically like getting the experience of a little workshop, isn't it? Really. So, and also great to meet kind of other people who are going through the same stage of their journey as you. Lovely stuff. So, oh, that one's done. So next question is asking, what's the most challenging part about makers? I mean, I guess this is going to have to be a bit anecdotal from what we hear from the students. Do you want to start first, Alex, and then I can go next?
Absolutely. So as a coach, my aim is to challenge the students every single week. So hopefully most of it, because when you're challenged just the right amount, that's when you're going to grow the most. There will be some bits that people find most challenging, but it really depends on the person. So some people find learning a new language very challenging. Some people maybe find the first couple of weeks very challenging, but it does really depend on who you are and what your previous experiences have been.
Yeah, for sure. And I think from what I've heard from the students that I'm familiar with, I know that obviously, you know, our course and these kinds of courses are boot camps, right? So it's not kind of like a sort of slow drip experience. Like there is a lot of content. So you need to be in kind of frame of mind where you're ready to not know absolutely everything about all of the content. And I think it's a very different learning experience than most people have been through before. You know, you might be used to university or high school or anything like that, where, you know, you're used to sort of learning, this is the set of answers that I need to know to do well. With makers, it's not like that. You need to kind of relinquish the feeling of having to master everything and kind of trust the sort of process, which sounds a little bit flaky, but it's really what you'll need to do in kind of reprogramming your sort of thought process around learning. We do help you with that. We have our colleague Dana runs a lot of sessions about more of the mindset around coding, which are and being on the boot camp, which are totally invaluable. So yeah, I'd say from my experience of what students say, that is definitely a challenge, because yeah, it's not like other learning experiences. Cool. So next question or questions from Tom are asking, in the FAQ it mentions Ruby and JavaScript as main languages. What other frameworks are introduced? I see some of the projects mentioned, many other frameworks, so curious how much can be covered in the course time. Alex, this one's all you.
This one's all me, and that's absolutely fine. So while we don't really have formal teaching around React, which you will have heard mentioned earlier, we have recently, essentially in response to demand, started doing some React workshops for final projects. Other frameworks people tend to pick up on their own. At Makers, we focus maybe a little bit more on the skills and behaviors required to really drive your career than necessarily individual concepts or frameworks or languages and things like that. We use those concepts and languages and frameworks as tools to learn the things that you're going to really need to know for 5 and 10 years in the future.
Lovely. And there's a second part of that question as well, which is asking what type of outcomes and jobs do graduates go on to? Is there scope to focus more on the back end, for example, during the course, if that's the career path you want to take? So I can answer a bit of this, and then Alex, if you, oh no, you go first. You go.
Yeah, let me answer this one, and you can add anything you want to add. So we see a mix of outcomes in terms of whether the people are front-end engineers, occasional QA engineers, back-end engineers. Honestly, I think I'd be really wary of making up your mind what you want to do before you've gone through the course. I think that's a great thing to do, reflecting at the end of the course. So I'm wary of saying, yes, you can just focus on the back end. No, you really can't. There are front end weeks in the course. There's a database week in the course. And so at least for the first half of the course, you'll get some exposure to all of that. After that, you have a little bit more control, and you may be able to negotiate with your team to deepen your experience in one area rather than another. But that's really up to you and your team at the time.
That's covered everything that I would have said far more eloquently. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Tom. Cool. So next question from Paul is asking, sorry, how many hours of additional or independent study do you recommend per week?
Okay, I think this might be a me question again. So it is a boot camp. So there are some things that we expect. So we'll generally expect you to commit your weekends as well as your weeks to the boot camp. I have seen people manage it who really have only done 8-hour days, but it's really very challenging if you do that. So I would recommend allowing at least one day in the weekend every weekend, and probably 3 or 4 hours in the evenings of the week as well. So think of it as a full-time job with a little bit more.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add as well is, yeah, you definitely do need to dedicate those hours. We by no means want you to like burn out though. So, you know, if there was a weekend or an evening where you're like, you know what, not today, that's definitely the better thing for you to do, because you can't work if you're just, you know, sort of completely burnt out. So yeah, as Alex said, you definitely need to commit to it and, you know, kind of see the time that you're on the course as this is what you're doing for that time. But yeah, we want you to look after yourselves, obviously. Hopefully that helps. Lovely. So for potential applicants, how would you recommend us to stand out during the application or interview? So there's a couple of things, and really the interview I don't think should ever be seen in the same way as like a normal interview, like we're not going to try to make you feel uncomfortable or, you know, catch you out at all. A lot of it is about your communication. If you get stuck, that's fine, you're brand new to this. We want to know what's your next step, you know, talk it out with us. We really want to see that you're willing and trying to tackle the program. So someone who's kind of like got that mindset of like, you know, just because I'm stuck doesn't mean I'm gonna stop. That's a really, really huge thing. But aside from that, just make sure you do the resources. You know, we do advise them for a reason. And it's also good, maybe less so in your interview, but oh no, you do also say application. We kind of want to understand that you do know a little bit about makers just as an organization as well, especially now, like there's so many boot camps on the market. There's a lot more choice than when we first started out, and we're not necessarily the right choice for everybody. But if you do think that we're the right choice for you, it's great if you can tell us a little bit about like why you think we're the right match, because we want to make sure that your experience is as good as possible. So yeah, showing us that you've done your research is definitely a good thing. Yeah, I think that's everything for that one. Alex, anything to add at all?
No, nothing for me to add there.
Lovely stuff. Okay, so Rafaela is asking, are the apprentices and the academy cohorts mixed or separate? Easy answer, those are separate. If I'm right, I think the apprentices, all cohorts will remain remote, whereas some of the bootcamp cohorts will be going to hybrid. Cool, so next question is asking, I noticed that makers have a very strong alumni community and connections. I was wondering if your tech recruitment team has the ability to support an individual who's looking to move to Scandinavia. That's exciting. So as I'm sure Grant would say if he was still on the call, the majority of our connections are in the UK, with a heavy weighting on London and the Southeast specifically. We have a few connections in like other UK cities, but generally speaking, like our pool of connections is UK based. On the alumni side, they are definitely a pool that you can reach out to. So everyone at Makers joins Slack. Some of you might be familiar with it. For those who aren't, it's literally just a communication platform, and everyone stays on that forever, basically. After they join Makers, you're part of that alumni Slack community, and that's a great place to reach out to alumni who are based elsewhere. We do have a lot of people who've relocated. I know we've got some people in Paris, in the US, and that sort of thing. We've got about 2,500 alumni now, so if you put the signal out, the chances are somebody will answer it. The other thing to add is that even though the companies that we work with, like we might not necessarily have connections there, all of like the careers skills that we teach are going to be super, super relevant wherever you're looking for work. So we teach you how to, or like we coach you to, you know, polish your tech CV, you know, do interviews, all those kind of things. So that side of the kind of career service we provide is going to still be super relevant. So good luck and have fun in Scandinavia. Awesome. So Rafaela is asking, does the curriculum vary from apprentices and academy? Alex, any thoughts?
So it can vary a little bit. So the apprenticeship curriculum can be somewhat tailored to the employer. Obviously, all apprentices are employed throughout the course by a company who's acting as their sponsor and who will continue to work with them as they complete their apprenticeship. So it can vary somewhat, but it doesn't vary massively. So it's reasonably similar, with the exception, of course, that apprenticeships, because it is employment, the hour commitment is maybe a little bit more limited as well.
Oh, thank you. So I've just been attacked by a housefly halfway through that. So not fun. That's a problem with having the windows open when it's this hot. Cool, yeah, no, thank you for your help with that one, Alex, while I was running around my house with a towel. Cool, so Paul is asking, where's the best place to start learning Java or JavaScript in order to get a bit of grounding in these languages before the bootcamp begins?
Okay, so there are a number of places for either of those languages. I will mention that those languages, JavaScript was named to be similar to Java, but the language itself is really not very similar at all, unfortunately. A little bit of historical marketing going on there. But both of those languages are fully supported on Code Wars, and you'll be able to find basic tutorials and resources for them yourself. Some of those are better, some of those are worse, but I don't have any in mind, unfortunately, that I can solidly recommend.
Cool, thanks, Alex. The only thing, I guess, from what I've heard other students suggest before is Free Code Camp has a lot of resources, and as the name suggests, they're free. So maybe check that out as well if you haven't tried there yet. Cool, next question from James. Do we have anywhere that they can store their bicycle on site? I'll have to check this with you, with our ops team, actually. I know we previously did, but as a lot of stuff has been moved around for kind of social distancing and kind of, you know, trying to reduce contact points and that sort of thing, I don't know if they're still there. James, if you want to private message me with your email address, I can get back to you and let you know if we do have bike storage. Hopefully I can help you. Okay.
Okay. Should I pick up this next one?
You could, yeah.
I think this is the last question. So what do you think is the advantage of learning Ruby and Java as opposed to HTML and CSS and Java, which I've seen taught elsewhere? So I'm assuming you mean JavaScript rather than Java, because in the Academy course, we don't really teach Java. But I think the advantage to learning Ruby is that there are a number of aspects of it which help beginners, and JavaScript can really, there are places where JavaScript can give really confusing error messages, for example, and things like that. And we want to celebrate error messages, and Ruby gives much more useful error messages most of the time. So this is why we don't just focus on JavaScript. The HTML and CSS aspects, we cover HTML to an extent in the course. I don't promise that we cover every single aspect of it because that would take a lot of time, but we do cover HTML and some CSS basics, but not very much. But the other aspect is that, you know, the ability to learn a new language is a crucial skill as a developer. I spent a decade in the industry and I've worked in, I think last time I counted it was about 12 or 13 languages. So the ability to work in a new language and to get up to speed and running with it is really important.
Cool, thank you so much, Alex. Just a note to James, I've got your message that you sent me directly, so I'll sort that information out for you. Just pasting it so I don't lose it. Cool. So yeah, that takes us to the end of the session today. Thank you all for kind of staying online with us. We hope you know, that you find this information useful. But like I said, if you do have anything else that we've not covered, just respond when I send the follow-up, and hopefully we can kind of cover a few more of your questions. You can always also call our admissions team. There's a button on our kind of homepage where you can book a call with them. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Lovely. Okay, cool. So yeah, have lovely weekends, everyone. Hopefully we'll see some of you at Makers soon. All right, bye.